2017, the net after-tax loss of African Airlines was $100 million US. You recall from the Secretary General's, the Betty's report early on, he highlighted some of the key challenges facing the African airlines. High fuel taxes, fees and charges, block funds, ownership and control restrictions, which has a bearing on investments coming into these airlines, exchange rate issues, HR issues. So many challenges which, as he put it, puts African airlines at a serious competitive disadvantage. Right? The question I put to you, given this rather dire set of challenges the African airlines are facing, which puts them in a serious competitive disadvantage, could those be the reasons why some countries have still not embraced SAATM? You get my point? We've all understood the rationale for SAATM, all the positive elements, including the safety, the infrastructure, the single African sky, all these elements, and liberalization, which, as our dear Mr. President confirmed, liberalization has opened the gateway to a significant increase in tourism, and therefore has this rather remarkable benefit on economic growth and socio-economic development. Now, if despite all these, you have many countries which have not embraced SAATM, I'm asking you, could it be because of these challenges which put their countries and their airlines at a competitive disadvantage? Could that be it? Because obviously we've been talking about this subject for 30 years. I think it's about time we go to the real reasons why this is not really happening. Wouldn't you agree? Or we can continue talking about this until 2063 and then have a chat about why this hasn't worked. Can I put it to you, and I put it to you, and I put it to you, can we have a very honest conversation about why more countries, why the whole of Africa have not embraced SAATM? Yes?
Vijay, just a small comment. You
yes.
said airlines and countries cannot, liberalization or entering into open skies may endanger airlines and countries. I would suggest removing countries on the side. Airlines may be endangered. Countries, they have nothing to do with the...
We know what's working. What is your sense, Teolde? Why are countries still resisting the call, actually the highest call of the land, of the continent, from the African Union, have now embraced this project? Why are some countries still resisting this?
Well, so many reasons, but I think from airlines' point of view, we think that countries or governments are not well informed.
Are not?
Well informed.
Well informed.
So many countries in our continent do not have well-thought, well-informed aviation policy or aviation strategy. I think it starts from there. Because in the aviation policy of the country, I would imagine or I would expect that the country will be very clear on what type of aviation sector it will have, what kind of airline it will have, what kind of linkages between airlines and the other aviation services, And for that matter, as we discussed before, what kind of linkages between the airline and tourism. So this kind of information is vital for the governments to make decisions. Right now, they are making decisions without this vital information. As a result of that, I think the end result seems to be lack of attention or lack of interest in aviation, because aviation is the least priority in many governments. It's down the line, the bottom list of their priorities. And I wouldn't blame them, because it's a poor continent, underdeveloped continent, so there are a lot of priorities for any government. In fact, the priority of any government in Africa today is to feed its people 3 times a day. No question. So now, where do we put aviation in those lists of priorities? And then how do we inform governments that it will be to their interest to have a very clear aviation policy? In that policy then, they will be able to define what kind of airline they have and what kind of liberalization, because liberalization is a general word. As we all know in basic economics, there is no free competition in this world. There is competition, various levels of competition. So they don't know where to put their country in that level of competition. For instance, we see in some countries completely protectionist attitude. We also see in some countries where their airlines are subjected to unbearable level of competition, unbearable. So this is 2 extremes. So now governments are playing within these 2 extremes. So because of lack of information and lack of clearly coherent policy and lack of attention and interest today, aviation is considered as an instrument of foreign policy, where that country will say yes to some countries and no to the others. So it is inadvertently or intentionally used as a foreign policy. And the other thing is, aviation is also used as a cash cow, as a very good source of tax revenue. And therefore, the countries focus on the tax revenue they get from aviation, and therefore make it expensive for airlines, for their customers. So it is vicious circle. So I would say, yes, today we only have 23 countries committed and signed for SAATM, others to follow. But even within those 23 countries, implementation is yet to be seen fully. And I say that it's lack of information. Why would the continent, the very viable and practical means of transport for the continent today is air transport. Road is underdeveloped. Railway is underdeveloped. So there is no other way for one person to move from one country to the other country. So governments know this. So knowing this, why would they make it extremely difficult for airlines to operate? Why would they make it very high taxation on fuel, on infrastructure, and on air tickets? So now this has created a vicious circle, as I said. Less connectivity, less number of flights, and airfares are high because of the cost of operation. So it's vicious circle.
Thank you. Désiré.
Ok, merci beaucoup. Donc, je pense que le CEO d'Ethiopian, donc il a tout dit. Hein, il s'agit essentiellement du problème de la communication. Parce que, par exemple, pour ce qui nous concerne, j'ai été invité donc à aller donc au lancement du SAATM. Bon, alors, donc au niveau du gouvernement, c'est ça, ils m'ont dit clairement de ne pas aller engager le gouvernement. Pourquoi? Parce que cette question a été soumise au niveau du Conseil des ministres, mais il n'y avait pas encore un engagement formel. Et là, le problème, c'est que souvent, au niveau de nos gouvernements, il faut que donc des gens soient suffisamment informés sur l'industrie. En tout cas, bon, donc il y a vraiment un intérêt qui est vraiment très marginal.
Thank you. I mean, following both CEOs, I think if you look at the list of 22 countries, you will see that, for example, Cameroon has not signed up yet. So, I mean, the easiest for me was to say that I cannot comment on this. But following the CEO of Ethiopian, I think as an organization, AFRAA should take the lead to lobby government and communicate better. And let me tell you why. Who is sitting at the African Union? We are talking about representation from our Ministry of Foreign Affairs, so far away from the Ministry of Transport, which even in some African countries are not well informed about such project. So if everything sits at the African Union, it may not be bad. I think there is a vision behind it, but that vision has to be well communicated. And allow me, Vijay, for a minute, to come back to the first point of the debate, which was tourism. Just tourism, if you look at tourism, you will see that while we are cash cow for some government in terms of tax, they expect a return of investment from the airlines because of tourism. Tourism alone, I have here 14 points in that ecosystem that tourism may impact. I mean, you name it. You have conference center, shopping, hospitality, health center, restaurant, museum, customs, the diaspora, immigrations, embassies, tour operators, ground handling, travel agencies, and so on. That's just a simple activity connected to air transport. If we go back and communicate well with our government and let them understand that air transport has more impact into the whole economic cycle, I think they will be welcoming everything else. They just don't know, and they have to make decisions. And I think we need to invest more into this, and I will personally maybe work harder as executive committee member of AFRAA to push for this to happen. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Vijay. I just wanted to clarify some very important facts about SAATM. There are currently 27 African countries who have signed up for SAATM, and that represents 80% of the total aviation sector in the continent. And why I'm very passionate about SAATM is because of the fact that the entire process of SAATM is for the benefit of African airlines. And it's not really something which is going to benefit foreign carriers, and it's going to make African airlines more competitive and also increase their share of the market. And I think it's very important that we think about Africa very similar to a very nice President, Donald Trump, who's thinking about America first. And I think it's very important that we think about Africa first. And when we look at SAATM, the whole philosophy which is on SAATM is actually based on the growth of the aviation sector in Africa. And the only way we can actually grow as an industry and as a continent is when we actually think and we believe in the concept of Africa first. And definitely for those of the other 27 African countries who have not ratified SAATM, I believe there will be a lot of pressure in time to come, both from within the government, also within the AU. But my message is that let's not wait for the other 27 countries. We already have 80% of the continent's carriers and countries which are already working towards full implementation of SAATM. And let's just move ahead, and that's the only way we're going to actually achieve the benefits of SAATM.
Thank you very much.
Yes, just to add to what my colleagues were saying, to me, having 27 or 30 or 40 is not the key target. Let's start by having SAATM implemented. And then the main thing is that, is it viable in terms of economics or not for an airline? If tomorrow SAATM is a reality, and we started opening routes. I'm not sure if we will open routes within all those 27 countries because of all the regulation, safety issues, taxations, etc. But what makes me more optimistic is that at the end of the day, in 1 year, in 2 years, in 5 years, the governments will understand that so much regulation and so much taxation is not efficient. They will by themselves change. Of course, we need to inform, as you were saying earlier, and lobby, and AFRAA can help on that. But we will end, I mean, the end result, we will achieve this by having a real system that is viable for the airlines to implement new routes. So I mean, if we are 27 or 40 or 50 airline country that have signed SAATM, the business will evolve in the upcoming years in a very natural way. We need to push it, we need to lobby, but it will happen one day. Thank you.
Any questions or comments from the floor? Please.
Mr. Moderator, please allow me to explain a bit further. My name is Safara Makonnen. I am the focal person of the SAATM in the African Civil Aviation Commission. I do concur on the comments made by our CEOs on the high table. We should make a distinction that SAATM doesn't need all member states to be party. SAATM was started among champions, 11 champions who want to expedite the implementation of the Yamoussoukro decision. So those 11 states were championed. Their initiative was adopted by the head of states. Now we reach to 27. Do we need all to embrace SAATM? We wish if all of member states, the 55 member states, are party to the solemn commitment. Yes, our states are not well informed. We can say that. But the 1999 Yamoussoukro decision was adopted by states. Since then, all the ministerial meetings were addressing on how to implement the Yamoussoukro decision. What have contributed to the delay? One, the establishment of the executing agency. It was only in 2009 that it was, AFCAC was mandated. However, the legal instrument for AFCAC to be the executing agency was only adopted January 2018. The regulatory instruments which might have contributed, particularly the competition rules, might have contributed to the reluctance of some airlines by the fear of competition from the relatively bigger airlines. Now, the institutional framework is in place. More states are showing interest to join SAATM. If you may recall, I have been attending this AFRAA AGA meeting since I joined AFCAC for the last 3 years consecutively. Whenever we gather, the number of states party to SAATM is increasing. Not only that, 17 states out of 27 have signed Memorandum of Implementation, which becomes automatically enforceable, so that any airline among the 17 can fly within each other. We should remain optimistic on the status so far achieved. I will go on the details on the status of SAATM after this panel decision. However, issues was raised by the moderator on this taxation, fees, aeronautical charges, and taxation, other aspects, which is challenging our African airlines in their